happened to last night, I was on a panel and I had to do an intro, so I might just use some slides. Can you see
Oh,
that?
perfect.
Yeah, I can.
So that just sort of works out. I'll do this real quick. I won't do the whole thing, but yeah, I mean, pretty much. So breakfast here. We'll do the whole thing. So we've been around for about 10 years, and essentially, we're a bunch of software people and marketing people and designers and artists that decided to try and find ways to bring tech into the real world through a whole bunch of custom hardware. I'll kind of leave it at that. Some of the things we've made that we're probably most known for, our thread screen has been pretty popular. This is 6,400 mechanical spools of thread, 200,000 parts. That I don't know how well this is going to play, but essentially each one the 36 different colors that it could rotate through is connected to Instagram. You hashtag an Instagram and it would come up, and the spools would spin, and there's it would all happen online, so you could just do a hashtag and watch your dog get made out of thread as it's wrapped in its American flag here. So these are like a whole bunch of those images that kind of came out of that thing. One of our other most popular things, I think, is our flip disk displays. So flip disks are these like tiny pieces of plastic with a magnet in between that uses electromagnet to flip around. You'd normally see them in like the front of buses and things like this. They usually move pretty slowly. I'll kind of skip through this, but I don't know if you can hear that. So we got them to run at about 18 frames per second a couple of years ago. You can't hear this, but it's they actually make noise, kind of like a train station sort of sign. So we installed a 22-foot long version of that probably about 7 years ago. About 2.5 years ago, we decided to productize it and made it the first ever Kinetic modular display. So you can kind of connect all these panels and make these screens as big as you want. And they now move at about, move about 40 frames per second. So you can do full video on them, things like that. It has a whole CMS. And so we have these installed. We have about 15 of these installed all throughout the country and soon the world. We're doing some in Spain and other places in the near future. So this is in the Wonder Museum in Chicago. This is the Little Caesars Arena in Detroit, Honeywell office in Atlanta, the Playground Incubator in Palo Alto. And we have them at the car shows of VW. And then we're installing one of the biggest ones right now, actually, just by Shea Stadium. Shea Stadium? No. Fenway Park, sorry, in Boston. And then our most recent thing is Brixels. So Brixels are these kinetic bricks. It's kind of like a medium that we use to create kind of half art pieces, half architectural pieces, half display, kind of half reactive screen. It's a lot of halves that don't add up to a whole. But you can see here they're kind of interactive. And so this was a piece that we made and released back in October. But the big idea here is that this is a medium where we can actually completely redesign the bricks themselves into various materials, shapes, sizes, etc. And we can start making all of these kind of different things, some that look and feel a lot like art, some that feel, this is a concept for a airport where you could actually be seeing the arrivals and departures. And pretty much just walking this line between kind of art and function. We're starting to embed LEDs into them as well, so they can kind of take on a new life at night. And then this is actually just kind of a wacky version that is using natural materials, so moss, slate, and water on a 3-sided brick to do some kind of weird stuff. So that is the super fast. Look, just had a nice little presentation. Didn't plan on doing that one. But yeah, so I think that hopefully kind of gives some of an idea. I mean, these days we're sort of steering more towards this kinetic art architecture world. But we have kind of dabbled with products and sort of connected cities and all this different kind of stuff. But yeah, I'll show it now. Yeah. Cool. How about you?
Yeah, so yeah. Well, a little bit introduction about myself. I worked for a startup in India, and I worked for like 3 years in robotics. And can you hear me? Am I audible? Yeah, sure. So, and then Yeah, like last year I decided to quit my job, and I started working on this idea that I had in mind for quite some time, and it's essentially it came to my mind while I was reading, and it's something to do with vocabulary. So the idea is essentially that when you read and you come across a new word, you tend to either ignore it, or you might like go search it up a dictionary or go to Google. And what happens is that it brings a little bit of there's a cognitive cost in switching tasks from reading to like accessing your phone or a dictionary. What that does is kind of hassles with your reading experience. So, and that's when I started thinking about a device that I could kind of hold in my hand, something like a pen, wherein I can just scan the word off a page, and it shows me the meaning instantly. So, and I started working on it about a couple of months ago. So I have the prototype right here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I don't know if you can see it, but it's got like a sensor there.
Yeah.
It's got like a bunch of LEDs, and it's got like a linear scanner, and that's the device. It's ESP32. That's the board that I'm using. Uh, it's a Wi-Fi. I mean, it's taking over the world right now, and it's got like a e-paper display. So so the idea is to like just scan it over a page and scan the text, and then it can it sends the scan to my server that's hosted on AWS, and does OCR, optical character recognition, on it, and it gets the word out of it, and then tries to get the meaning and sends it back to the device. Um, the idea is to get the word as soon as possible after the scan is done, so that you have access to meaning very quickly, so that you don't have to wait for or have a cognitive switching cost of getting to your phone and then getting distracted by all the notifications.
Yeah.
And like despite that, also in India, like English is something people really look up to and try to learn, and they struggle with it sometimes. So sometimes people are not unable to get the pronunciation. So the
Mm-hmm.
device can also stream the audio of the word, and can kind of give you the pronunciation. The basis of this entire project is a lot of people learn vocabulary, at least here in my country, by just memorizing a lot of words, and that's not how it's supposed to be done. The basis of this project is something called ethnology. That's how you learn words by their origin. So the device will also show the origin of the word. So what you do is you kind of break down the word from its origins and how you learn it. So it's not just about showing the word meaning; it's about showing the origin of the word, showing the pronunciation, and who knows, later on, if the project picks up, I would like to do like multilingual translations as well. So if you're trying to learn a new language like German or French, you
Yeah.
could very much scan it off of a book, and get the word meaning instantly. And this could also be very useful for students in universities who are trying to read off, from huge texts where they come across a phrase or something that they want to write down. Instead, they could just scan it off. It goes directly to the cloud account, so they don't have to worry about it. Multiple applications that way. That's one plan I'm doing. As of now, I just want to scan the word and get that's the whole. Uh, that's like an overview of my project. So far, I've just done this much. It's just a scanner that scans something off my paper and sends it to my cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And my next step is to finish the optical character recognition, so get the word out of it. That's where I'm at. And going further, yeah, I'll have a lot of work on the electronics aspect of it. And this year's team being DFM, have absolutely no experience in that area. I'm also planning to shift the project to a Raspberry Pi Zero, so that uh, I really may not actually have OCR done on the cloud. There's a bit of lag. I want to do that on board, so that the word meaning is available right on the device, something like edge computing. Uh, rather than having a cloud access to it. Yeah, that's the whole idea.
Got it. I missed a couple things in there, but I definitely I got the gist of it. Is it
Sure.
so one horribly disappointing thing is my partner here, Mateus, was supposed to join, and I think he would have a blast diving into the sort of tech side of it, in the sense that he's the CTO, and he's the one that would you could truly nerd out with. I'm the more creative design guy. So the
Yes,
best
sir.
that I can do is probably come in through the lens of kind of the user experience side of things, and just maybe the concept in
Sure, yeah.
general. I mean, one thing that was screaming out to me though is, I guess the thing I'm always interested in at the beginning of any conversation, whether it's a client or something like this, is sort of the goal. What is your overall goal with this? Like, I mean, do you have the dream to kind of take this to product and all that, or is this kind of baby
Well,
steps in,
honestly,
let's see where it gets
I
to?
mean, the reason why I started this project is because I myself struggle with vocabulary sometimes. Like people
Mm-hmm.
who are partially dyslexic have a lot of problems reading.
Okay.
So there is partly an emotional start to it. But I also see that there is a huge potential to the product, as in a lot of people do not understand how to pick up, you know, words, and so I do see some potential in terms of a product
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's for one, I think it's a very cool idea. I think it's something that, looking at it through the business sense, just for fun.
Sure.
The thing that's screaming through my head is how do you make this? I'm sure if you go and show this to a bunch of people, I wouldn't be surprised if lots of people say, well, why don't I take out my phone? You have the response of the notifications and things like that. I think the thing that would make this successful is, all right, how do you get it to be cheap? What I mean? How do you design it in a way to ensure that it can just be kind of run? How do you make the bomb as cheap as possible, make it last as long, and kind of, long story short, not end up being close to the price of a phone or something like that, and have it be a deterrent. And so the thing that's going through
All
my
right.
head is one, I imagine you don't need to go to the cloud for all of this stuff, meaning that the size of a full dictionary with multiple languages could be on an SD card, even a very small one. Is there a reason that you're going up to the
Right.
cloud each time versus potentially storing down, the one, the main
Yeah. Sure.
language or the two or three languages, and just doing it all locally?
Uh, yes, there is a reason. The reason is that let's say I mean, I'm doing a bit of a user persona here. Let's say if it's a kid who is using this product, and as he grows along with age, like every word that he scans, it needs to be stored somewhere in a repository. It can be stored on the device as well, but each user or will also get an account, um, so that it keeps a track of all the words. The idea is to also have
Okay.
an app. So over time, it will give you an analytics on how good your vocabulary is, or how diverse your vocabulary is, or which areas you need to improve on. Or let's say you're going to do engineering, then it's going to test your vocabulary. So it's also the entire vocabulary service. It's not just device. But this is at a later point. The reason why I started doing cloud now is because this device uses an ESP32 doesn't have enough computing power on board. So as of now, I'm using this.
Yeah.
But once I get a Raspberry Pi, yeah, pretty much everything can be done on board. But still, I would like to have a cloud connection in order to keep a repository so that it can have I can get an Android app to access all of the data and have an analytics run over it. Also for
Yeah.
collecting data.
Yeah. I guess the reason I was tying those two things together with kind of the business case and the bomb cost and all of this stuff is, what it needs to. I totally agree. Having the analytics and having an account and all that stuff is a no brainer. I guess I'm just wondering if you didn't have to hit it constantly. I mean, I'm just thinking about like the battery, you know what I mean? Like how do you keep that to a minimum? And obviously if you're,
All right.
you know, just seeing if you can avoid it from having to be something that has to be charged that much. I mean, I don't know how much power you're going to be sucking down from this thing, but I guess where my head went is your comment about making sure it's fast, right? So like the idea that that word or that definition could come up instantly and not have to go to the cloud for that feels like the
Yes.
make or break moment in the user experience of it, where if it,
Yes.
you know, takes longer to you know, even if they're talking about milliseconds, you know, that really can make a difference in something like that. So
Absolutely.
my inclination would be, you know, to get those definitions, get it where something is coming up instantly, even if there's secondary things that are happening over the cloud. And I don't know if that is directly with a Wi-Fi chip on board, or even just like Bluetooth piggybacking off your phone, something of that sort. But I love the angle of the language thing. I mean, do you imagine this being solely I mean, I can imagine it working, you know, you have something in like restaurants and stuff like that. I'm just trying to think if you've thought about it beyond books, or if it's kind of limited just to, I don't know, have you found yourself thinking about other areas as well?
Um, initially I was concerned about first time I started sharing the project with my friends. A lot of people said that what about, have Kindle and digital readers, and most of us still read on our mobile phones or laptops.
Hmm.
And but I did some fact checking, and there are a lot of people who still rely on handheld textbooks. They don't
Yeah.
really read. I mean,
Yeah.
having all these bookworms and all that. So it's still about 70% of the share still goes to handle text. Uh, I mean, we're just talking about, imagine kids in school, they still use books.
Yeah.
So there is, and then you go to universities, I see people around with books. Sure, a lot of this content is online and have it digitized. But I don't think we're getting rid of handheld text any any anytime soon. So
Yeah. Yeah. Got it.
um,
And
the other, as to your question of um, exploring other fields, I did think about an Android application along with this device,
mhm.
so that um, it not only gives you access to the, like I said, the etymology, the origin of the word, but also its usage in a sentence, and then also like let's say you come across a new word, and then what you do is you search on the app. I mean, there are a lot of dictionary applications, but how the app is going to be different is that it's not about just memorizing the word. It's about really feeling the intent of the word, trying to
Mhm.
understand, to empathize with the word, trying to know how you can really use it. So it's going to give
Yeah.
you a mnemonic to memorize the word, and then it will give you a video example. Its usage, let's say from a movie, so it's a video, and then it will also show you the root origin, so how the word actually came into existence. What was it past? Was it colloquial uh, existence? Because some of the words actually come up because of certain regional aspects, the cultural aspects, because they don't make sense at all. This is random. So if you give the user the background of why a word exists and why it's so, they'll tend to remember it more than just mugging it up, let's say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there
Got it.
is, yes, but it's too soon to speak about this. I mean, I just want the device to work as of now. I want to ensure that it's a lot of work, but I think the first phase of the project is to give the user the experience of instantly getting the meaning as soon as they scan it. Uh, yeah, as of where I'm really stuck as to whether to stick with this device. So this one, if it goes into a deep sleep mode, it consumes as less as 15 microamperes. It's almost nothing. In
Yeah.
fact, that means the device can exist for a couple of days, more than a month.
Yeah.
It kind of back. But if I put a Raspberry Pi, I'm certainly sure it's going to consume a lot of, I don't know, I mean, I'll have to do some optimization on the board to ensure that the battery lasts. Um, but yeah, that was a point of concern as well. I could think about
Got
that.
it.
And your point about the bomb, um, I mean, Raspberry Pi CEO is like really cheap, comes for like $5 now. Uh, and the electronics, the only hardware that she goes along with is a couple of push buttons and the sensor
Hmm.
that I'm getting for $3. So on a whole, let's say even with the casing and everything, I'm trying to hit a $20 price point on my side. So not exceeding, not trying to exceed. So it depends on the electronics again. If I use the ESP, you won't even exceed $15 with the Raspberry Pi, about $20. But again, the costs of running a cloud and all of that would later come in. So that's something
Got it.
I don't want to talk about right now. But yeah, the bomb would pretty much somewhere be around $15 to $20 is what I'm hoping for.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, this is. I definitely want to connect you with Mateus on this end because he's the guy who should be on this call, in the sense that he can probably give you endless amounts of advice here, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had ideas of. My guess is he'd probably steer you away from the Raspberry Pi, depending on depending on like how far you want to go with this and how many features you want to kind of pack in. But I bet you'd be able to get pretty far with what you have and trying to keep it cheap and small. Obviously, the Raspberry Pi is, it physically, if the dream in the end is to end up in a kind of pen form factor, the Raspberry Pi is all kind of locked down, and it's a bit, it's you're not going to be able to take that all the way to a pen size thing. You're going to have to switch to something else anyhow, just because the Qualcomm chips and everything, it's all a little package there. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to find a time for him to at least toss over his thoughts to you. Magenta, what is the how is everything in this competition, I guess? Like,
Yeah.
how is it judged?
How do you,
what is it judged? What is it judged on? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I was also had a question about, you mentioned that you want to have, you're thinking about like an enclosure for the design.
Yeah.
Have you started, are you planning on sort of prototyping that before the end of the competition?
Yes, absolutely. I have a 3D printer at home, so yeah, pretty much designing casing, but looking at your scheme for DFM, I have absolutely no guidance in terms of going for a full-fledged, let's say, injection molded parts or even vacuum casting. I mean, these are the only two methods. At least where I stay, I have only access to casting, and the finish is usually not that great. So yeah, I mean that's something I haven't really started thinking about yet. But yes, I will be doing a 3D printed casing initially. That's how far I can get with the resources that I have right now.
Because something I would think about is, I know that it'll take, it might take a little time to figure out the hardware and get the hardware down to the size you're thinking for your like ideal enclosure. But wouldn't let that stop you from thinking about the form in parallel potentially,
Right.
because even having like a proof of concept visually of what you're thinking for the form factor could help a lot, with the strength of your entry. If you have that 3D print, like you can have your works like prototype and your looks like prototype disconnected until you're able to bring them all together. If you're running into issues of getting the hardware to where it needs to be in time to develop that enclosure in unison. Just an idea. But yeah, so as far as Zolty's question, so everything is reviewed through the Hackaday IO submission. So it's all through video, images, and written description. And as we've listed on the website, the criteria is around concept, design, production, benchmark, and communication. So I can sort of go into each of those if you guys are interested in me
Sure.
Yeah,
going into it, but
I think, yeah, I was going to say, I think that's just what I wanted to understand is how much, how much time, it sounds like, yeah, you're focused almost exclusively on the electronic side, which I can totally understand wanting to do. And I'm just wondering, per what you just listed in the sense of concept and so forth, like how much time you're spending on the rest of it in the sense of really just showing what is the bigger idea, what is the true manifestation of this, and what then, how much more than what you have do you need to show? Because I think at the end of the day, if you can show some basics of it working, but if next to that you can show what the real idea is, I think the thing that we run into all the time is it takes a long time to make the thing and make it right. And so we rely immensely on renders and drawings and
storytelling.
Exactly. And so I guess that's which is the thing I could probably help with the most on this call versus the tech stuff to some degree. So yeah, I mean, I think I would make sure that you're, and I can totally tell the kind of person you are, that you just want to go and you want to play with the electronics and you don't want to probably think about the other stuff too much.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think if you want to have a shot at taking home the prize, I think really sinking your teeth into, I mean, I don't know how much you've played with, or do you know any basic 3D programs at all? Have you ever, even SketchUp, I don't know if you've ever dabbled.
worked with Autodesk Inventor before.
Oh, yeah, perfect. So, I mean, I think even if you come up with the most basic thing, what I would do if I were you is I'd go attempt to, if it's Inventor, or even if you just grab a free trial of SketchUp and, sink in a couple days into just like trying to make the thing look like something, or look like the thing that you might have just stuck in your head, and then grab a trial of Keyshot. I don't know if you've ever played with Keyshot, but you can just so I mean, it's a very simple rendering engine, so you can just take your file that you export from Inventor or SketchUp, drag into Keyshot, and then just grab the white plastic material and then hit render, and now you have like a pretty nice render of it, and you're probably going to get really excited when you see that, and it's going to make other people, I mean, at the end of the day, I think we all know that like marketing is 60% or 70% of any product, and I think even in a competition, you don't want people thinking the board you held up in your hand is what you're trying to get people excited about. That's the thing you show. It's like, this is the thing. This is the shiny, cool thing that I want to make, and this is how it works. And then here's where I'm at. And here, wherever you're at, they're going to be like, cool, but they get your vision. You know what I mean? And I think right now, even just the way that you've explained it to me, it feels like the inverse, potentially, where if you focus too much on the piece that kind of doesn't necessarily look good, but it might do the thing you want it to do. I would just find that balance, and I think it's worth taking some time and playing on the kind of design side of things, and just making sure that that's going to be the juicy eye candy. That's the all the Apple marketing BS that makes people actually want to buy that thing, and then whether they show a real working one or not is kind of secondary. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I would even recommend going through those criteria, because with each one we've listed a few questions to help get you guys started. Is it creative, original, functional, pushing boundaries, things like that, and just go through like as an exercise and answer all those questions and upload that as a project log, and continue to iterate on those drafts, and that'll really help you start to get your thoughts down, and get them sort of refined. The more you go, you can sort of check back in on that, at least alongside all the hardware development.
All right.
And I think it would be I think it would be great to see. I mean, you listed so many applications and so many kind of use cases that
Yeah.
I think just having like a visual for those, it's like, even if it's just, I mean, I know you're using, it looks like you're using an e-ink panel, right? At the moment, I don't know if that's the plan in the long term,
Yeah.
but even if you just were able to, you know, I don't know if you know Photoshop to some degree, but even just some basic laying out of like, all right, here's a little screen. And this is like, just imagine this is the screen on the cool little render I made over there. And just go through the screens. Like here, this is what it's going to look like if it's showing me the origin of the word. This is what it's showing me if I'm learning this language, and like spending time and just like, it's the same exact screen, you're just changing the text, but at least it tells that story and it gives you a visual to remember it. And then it starts to feel like you have a, you know, a cohesive, I mean, all this stuff could then be put into a video, even if it's not animating, you know what I mean? Like you can just put them back to back in some
Right.
regard. And I think it just takes everything that you were saying, and now you can kind of express it visually. And then to
I
me,
think
yeah, go ahead.
I think what might be good is an animation, but I have no idea where to get started for that, because I saw some of the animations for your products. Um, I have I have no idea where to get started for animation.
Well, I don't
It's-
know if, I mean, what would you want to animate? I mean, your product doesn't, I mean, are you thinking like the animation of the screen?
just yeah, like no, maybe a person holding the product and like scanning it or like text.
Got it.
Something like that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess another interesting thing is if you're doing the model in, did you say you have access to a 3D printer?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So like, so if you have, I mean, if you kind of if you go and make that model in SketchUp or Inventor, obviously you can drop that into KeyShot and get the render, but you could go and 3D print that, get some sandpaper, sand it down, and then spray paint it with some
All right.
white paint. You'll be surprised
Right.
if you do a really nice sanding job, and then spray it with
Right.
some white paint, and then get like a black piece of tape and just put it where the screen would go.
All
You know,
right.
you could just shoot a video of that where like it looks
All
like
right.
like maybe, and I don't know, you can embed a little LED in the end of it or something like that, and just,
Right.
you know, shoot, like imagine the shot is, the thing you're selling is the person doing it. And so if you think of it less of like, I'm going to zoom in on the product, but instead I'm just going to show someone using it. So the camera might be back a couple of feet and someone's just holding a book and you just see the top
Right.
of the pen over the book. And then, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. That could say a lot. And then you could kind of do a cut to, you know, a still where the text is coming up, or you could,
Yeah, I got it.
you know, you could shoot that and then, yeah, like fake it. That's, I think that's my point, is you could fake a lot of it. And for what it's worth, if you go and do a couple KeyShot tutorials, you can do animation in there very, very easily. It's probably as easy as it can get, where you can just say, you know, here's my pen, I want it to slide to the left over the course of 3 seconds, kind of stuff.
No,
I mean,
I'm back. Actually, there was a pretty
oh,
bad network.
yeah, it's cutting in. I don't know if it's on. I don't know what's
Can
the
you hear
last
me?
thing you heard. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, about the video. Yeah, uh, something about the. Uh, yeah, you were talking about the video. Essentially, I got the point.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know where I left off there. I think I was.
I think he was also saying you could do it both virtually, you know, with the render engine and make
Right.
animations, or you could 3D print your model and shoot something, you know, live with with someone holding the 3D print and that sort of thing. Another tool I would recommend, it might seem, I don't know, to me it's maybe as friendly as SketchUp, but Autodesk Fusion 360 is, they have a lot of accessible packages for that, for companies making under a certain amount, or students, or professionals in a certain range. So and it has a nice, like, it has rendering and modeling and CAM package to export to your printer. And I think the rendering, I don't know if how you feel about it, Zolty. Maybe
yeah, no, it's good. A lot of people use that.
I think that the learning curve might be big at first if you're not familiar with tools like that, but there's a ton of really great resources for free on YouTube and through Autodesk on how to use most of their tools on Fusion. And the rendering to me is super user friendly in comparison to some of the other software I've worked with. So one of my recommendations, yeah. And it's nice that it's all in one place.
All right, you've got that noted.
Yeah, so I think unless you had any other specific questions, we might wrap up soon. I have a few announcements, but I'll let you have a last, if you had any other questions.
No more questions. I think I got a lot from this video. Yeah, I'll go ahead and update my Hackaday.io page very soon.
Awesome.